180 degrees if I add them together. So two very important vocabulary terms. Make sure if you need to pause it or stop it to copy this, you do so, because I'm not finished. Okay? I think it's important to explore vocabulary. Okay? Complementary. That should be 3. Complementary angles. Complementary angles have a sum of 90 degrees. Okay? If I do this, as you can see, a transversal has cut this angle off and split this 90-degree angle into two separate pieces. If I gave this one A and this one B, we know that A plus B is equal to 90 degrees. And I know this because there makes a right angle. Okay? If I told you this one was 43 degrees, you had to find B. We know that 43 degrees plus B is equal to 90 degrees. So 90 minus 43 is that algebra again. Have to be 47 degrees. So B would have to be 47 degrees. So the sum of these angles to get 90 have to add up to 90 degrees. And if I use the inverse operation and add the angles together, I should get what I began with, which was 90. One more word. It's transversal. Okay? And a transversal is a line that intersects an angle. Okay? And that's all it is. So I think it's important that we explore vocabulary first before we actually look at the skill. All right, let's look at B. B is finding the complement. Complement is the same as complementary. So if we're finding the complement, we're finding the missing angle from two angles that have a sum of 90. So if I drew this, call that one A. If I drew this one, transversal coming up there. Put some letters, like the name angles. Put some letters on them and some endpoints. Okay, this is called the vertex because this is where they share a common point. Okay. Now, let's put some variables in between. Put L here, M here, N, O, P. Now, you need to first identify these angles, or what kind they are. Okay? Look at the shape of it. Look at the way it's structured. Looks like a right angle, so I know that it has to have a sum of 90 degrees. Okay? If I give you one of these, you ought to be able to find the missing one. So I'm going to tell you what L is over here. L is equal to 37 degrees. Well, I know since I'm finding the complement, that means 90 degrees. So I'll plug 37 degrees in L. I don't know M, so M's going to come down. But I know both have a sum of 90 degrees. I'll use what I know about inverse operations. Since this 37 degrees is positive, the inverse is negative. I'm going to subtract 37 degrees from both sides of the equal sign. Take the signs with the constant. Bring down the variable. You're left with 90 minus 37, or 57 degrees. So M has to be 57 degrees for this to be a complementary angle. Well, let's check it with addition. If I take 57 degrees and add it to 37 degrees, excuse me, this should be 53 degrees. Got ahead of myself. And I added 53 degrees plus 57 degrees. I should get 90 degrees. And I did. And I did. Okay? Looking over here, I should see two sets of complementary angles. Angle DFE is complementary. It forms a right angle. And angle EFH forms a right angle. Well, I've got some variables there. And wherever I see a variable, I know it's an unknown number. Okay? N, there's nothing else around it. So I know this angle, N, has to be 90 degrees. It's not split. Okay? Well, over here, this 90-degree angle, EFH, is split into two smaller angles. Angle EFG and angle GFH. Okay? If I tell you that O is 18 degrees, could you find P? Well, sure I could. I know that O plus P equals 90 degrees. It gives me O, so substitute. P has to be the difference of 90 degrees and 18. So I'll use my inverse operation of a positive number, which is negative, and subtract from both sides of the equal sign. Take the signs with the constant. Bring the variable down. 90 minus 18 is 72 degrees. I use inverse operation to check my math. So 72 degrees plus 18, which is what I started with, should give me 90 degrees. And it does. And that's how we find the complement. Okay? And of course, you should be copying these examples down in your notebook. It may not be in step-by-step form yet, but you ought to be able to practice with it and put it in step-by-step form. But I'll try to put this one in step-by-step form for you. Let's talk about finding the supplement. Okay? Well, if complement means 90, supplement has to mean 180 degrees. Same scenario. I give you these angles. I like to give them a name. Okay. Make them kind of wacky. Because you'll see angles of many ways. Let's call this one L and this one N. Okay, I'll say this one is P, Q, and R. Notice my variables are cursive, and when I name my lines, I use capital print. You want to do that so you won't get mixed up. It's easier to tell which are variables and which are naming the angle. Okay? Alright, I see quite a bit of things in here. Okay? I know that I need, and I'm going to take this out purposely, just to begin. And I'll add it to it later. Okay? Just start with two variables right now. I know that side-by-side angles, or adjacent angles, Side-by-side angles share a vertex and a ray. Okay? Side-by-side angles are supplementary. That means they measure to 180. If I gave you the value of one of these variables, you ought to be able to find the other. So I'll tell you that this one is 98 degrees. Okay? And that kind of makes sense because you can see that it used to be a 90-degree angle, but the back is leaning a little bit, so that's making it out too. It's more than 90. So if I use my knowledge of substitution, I don't know what P is, so my variable comes down. I do know what Q is. It's 98 degrees. And I know that the sum of the angles, if they're supplementary, have to be 180. I use my knowledge of algebra. I'm going to subtract 98 degrees. Excuse me, from both sides. Take my signs with the constants, bring my variable down. P equals 82 degrees. Use the inverse operation to check it. 82 degrees plus 98 degrees should equal 180 degrees. And I think it does. Okay. If, same difference over here. L and N are adjacent. How do I know? They're side by side. And it tells me by definition that angles that share a vertex and a common ray are adjacent. So L plus N has to be supplementary if they're adjacent. Because supplementary angles and adjacent angles are basically one and the same. It doesn't give me the values yet, so I'm going to go ahead and give you the value of L. This is, let's say, 110 degrees. Well, use my method, my knowledge of substitution and plug in the numbers. L has to equal 110 degrees. I don't know what N is, so I'll bring it down. I know the sum of these angles is 180 degrees. I use my knowledge of algebra. 110 degrees is positive, so the inverse has to be negative. I subtract 110 degrees from both sides. Take the signs with the constants. Bring down the variable and the equal sign. I'm now left with 180 minus 110 degrees, or 70 degrees. I use my knowledge of inverse operations to check it. 110 degrees plus 70 degrees should equal 180 degrees. Okay? I'm going to give you a step-by-step fashion now. Normally I give it before, but I'm going to give it to you now. Okay? Looking for your steps. Okay? Step 1, draw the figure. Label the figure. Step 3, use your knowledge of angles to fill in the missing pieces. Really don't need that. Step 4, use inverse operations to check your work. Folks, if you use the examples before I erase them and align each example with these 4 steps, you should be okay. Okay? If you have any questions, just let me know.